Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Cheese and today we are going to be reading The Traffic Light Trio by Itslivybear. This will be chapter 12 of the Podficcer's Baton Pass, and if you don't know how this works already, here's the quick rundown. Pinmai read chapter 11, and Vic's Podfic will read chapter 13. This will keep going in a sort of loop situation until all the chapters of the fic have been read. And without further ado, let's get straight into it. The first fight was Uraraka versus Todoroki. Uraraka looked incredibly determined, whereas Todoroki just looked completely normal, like he always did. Our first fight of the third round is our second place winner of the first two rounds, the Ice Prince, Todoroki Shoto! The crowd cheered uproariously, and Mike continued, versus someone you can't help but root for, Uraraka Ochako. You're supposed to be unbiased. What do you mean, Eraser? That was totally unbiased. No bias here. Midnight snorted and raised her whip. Fighters, rules are simple. You win by knockout, ring out, or your opponent saying they give up or can't continue. Are you both ready? They both nodded, eyes never leaving each other. Then let's get started. She cracked her whip down, and Todoroki leaned forward with his right side, sending ice spiraling towards Uraraka, but she already had pressed her fingers together and flirted herself. She quickly released, letting her momentum and sending her hurdling for him, hand outstretched to tap him. And Uraraka uses her anti-gravity quirk to dodge Todoroki's first strike. Can he recover before she uses it on him? He just did. Eraser, what are you feeding these kids? Their reaction times are incredible. They came like that. In addition, it would be illogical to let yourself get distracted or underestimate your opponents. Always assume the worst is going to happen, and you'll either be right or pleasantly surprised. I think that's the longest string of words we've heard from you today. Thank you for your wisdom, O Great One. This is why you had to drag me here. And another skillful dodge by our gravity girl. But she's looking a little queasy, and Todoroki is not letting her get close. If she tags him, she can float him out of the ring. It's smart for him to keep her at a distance. She's a powerful force, and he knows it. If we get this level of commentary every battle, this will be the most you have spoken in public since graduating high school. And the more you point it out, the less likely it is to continue. And it looks like Todoroki finally caught Uraraka's feet in an iceberg. Can she escape, or is this the end? Midnight raised her whip. Uraraka is unable to continue. Todoroki is the winner. The crowd went wild, and Todoroki stepped forward, beginning to melt the ice that was practically consuming the arena. Uraraka was high up, her lower legs completely caught in ice just past her knees. She was broken out and walked off the field by Todoroki since she was shivering badly and still looked nauseated. Izuku hopes she felt better. Tch! Kachan muttered further down the row. She put up a good fight against Icy Hot. He looked at the class when he felt their stares. What? Jiro twirled an earjack with a raised eyebrow. Bakugo, was that a compliment? Fuck off, ears! The class burst into laughter, taking that as a yes, and Izuku smiled softly to himself. Bakugo was making genuine friends who he respected. It was a miracle. Stepping up to the ring is a Hero Corps student, Ida Tenya, and one of our support students to make it this far, Hatsume! Hatsume! That's right. Sorry, Mike, but this is my show now. Don't worry, I'll return it to you once we're done. Izuku winced at seeing Ida decked out in support gear, anything she hadn't used in the cavalry battle, and more, and knew exactly what May was about to do. His battle might be next, but he had at least 10 minutes before he even needed to think about going to the waiting room. Still, Protocol dictated that he head to his waiting room now, so he found himself pacing around the room, trying to remember everything he could about Setsuna. He knew she was in Class 1B, and that she got in on recommendations. But other than that... He thought back to the cavalry battle. She had been on the team with Mina, and he'd seen her detach her hands to grab at headbands, so she could at least detach and probably reattach her hands, if not other parts of her body. He got so lost in planning that when Mike's voice came back on, signifying that May had relinquished the sound system and therefore probably given up, having done her advertising, he jumped a little before heading out. He passed the disgruntled Ida and tried to offer him a smile before stepping back out into the arena. He squinted in the bright light as Mike introduced him to the crowd's cheers. In one corner, we have our favorite lizard girl, Setsuna Tokage, of Class 1B. And in the other corner, our undefeated first place, Midoriya Izuku of Class 1A. A battle of the hero classes. Who will win? Midnight grinned. Good clean match, eh? Give him a show, kiddies. Fight! Izuku lit up green, darting forward to try to catch her off guard, but he just went through her. He literally went through her. Her body had split apart, flying a few feet away in all different directions, letting him pass through harmlessly. He whirled around to face her as she reformed with a grin. Mr. Undefeated World Place, huh? We'll have to change that. She darted forward suddenly on the offense, and her hand flew faster than she did, curling into a fist and barely missing his head as he pushed One for All to 5%, dodging out of the way. Oh, come on! I knew Mina's classmates would be cool, but you're just too fast, dude. He said, avoiding her hand still. I think your quirk is really cool. Since President Mike called you a lizard, if a part of your body got destroyed or was otherwise unable to reattach, would it regrow, like a lizard's tail? She snorted. You're asking me about my quirk in the middle of our match? Monomo was right. You are a little crazy. Izuku flushed. He said that? Nah. He just said you had a love and knowledge of quirks, which, to me, means crazy. But, yeah. I can regrow parts, but it sucks and takes a lot of time and energy, so I avoid that. He nodded to himself. Then, is that also why you have sharp teeth? Yep, she grinned, showing them off. Just the fangs, for the most part, but all my teeth are a little pointy. You're pretty funny, Midoriya. Thanks? He darted forward, grabbing at her arm to try and throw her, but she just detached her arm and stepped back several feet. Can you feel your detached limbs? Yeah. Then I'm really sorry. Her eyes widened, and he took her left arm and snapped the upper part before setting it on the ground. Her eyes watered as she bit back a scream, and the arm limped back to her, reattaching but still being at a bad angle. Smart, she gasped. I'm down an arm. She grinned, and the lower half of her arm detached. But not all of it. She went in for a punch again, but it was a feint, and she caught him in the ribs with her right hand before gripping his arms and starting to push him back towards the edge of the arena. Izuku dug in his feet, not able to get a good grip on the hands, and only the hands that were pushing with the full force of her body behind them. But he delivered a boosted pinch to both hands, making her swear and loosen her grip. He slipped out and rammed into her, sending her staggering back and hissing at how it jostled her arm. I'm really, really sorry. She grinned, even as he pushed her further. You're one weird guy, Midoriya. It's a fight. Why are you apologizing? He picked her up and tossed her out. She turned to land on her good side, but her attempts to keep herself in bounds were unsuccessful, and the crowd went wild as Midnight called the match. Izuku hurried over to her, wringing his hands. Are you okay? Can I take you to Recovery Girl? Oh, jeez. She laughed, hauling herself to her feet and extending her right arm for a handshake. Sure. Us greenies gotta look out for each other and all that. Recovery Girl clucked her tongue as they arrived, but gave Setsuna a kiss before turning to him. It was a clean break. If you have to break someone's arm, that's the way to do it, but don't make a habit of it. He nodded rapidly, bowed to Setsuna's laugh, and hurried out, wanting to see if he could catch the match between Tokoyami and Mina. If he had to guess, Tokoyami would probably win, if only because Dark Shadow couldn't be hurt by her acid. But she was pretty slick. Pardon the pun. The crowd cheered just as he reached the 1A viewing box. Denki, who won? The electric boy grinned. Hey, Zuzu, nice win. But anyway, Tokoyami won. It took him a while for her to catch her, but once he did, ring out. He sighed. Man, I figured. But still, it would have been cool if she had won. Dark Shadow is really powerful, though, and Tokoyami is nothing to scoff at either. Izuro chuckled. True, and you get to fight him next. I have a plan. Denki doubled over laughing. Well, duh, you're Mr. Minnow, the man with the plan. Izuku rolled his eyes and sat down as the next match was announced. Our sparkling freshman, Aoyama Yuga, in one corner, versus the queen of creation, Yaoyorozu Momo. Who will take victory between our Class 1A competitors? Midnight called for the start, and Momo brought out a circular shield and a long pole. Upon closer inspection, not only was the shield concave, or curling away from her, but it was mirrored. These two have fought before in training, and it was a close battle. I wonder how much they've learned from that fight. This is the kind of commentary and backstory we need. A rematch. Will the outcome remain the same, or will the underdog rise to the challenge? Who knows? Not me. I don't actually know the outcome of that fight. Yaoyorozu won. Barely. Will our dazzling blonde be able to take his revenge? As it turned out, no. Momo had learned from that battle, and every time Aoyama shot at her, she captured it with her curved shield and sent it right back to him, getting closer to hitting with every shot. Izuku could only imagine how difficult it would be to aim that, but she was actively getting better all of the time, until finally a shot hit. Multiplied by the mirrored surface, it hit him like a sack of bricks and hurled him out of the arena. She didn't even use her staff for more than playing keep away, and so she would have enough distance to catch the beams. The queen has not been overthrown! Yaoyorozu Momo is our winner! We are halfway through round 1, folks. That's right. 4 more matches for round 1. Izuku looked up to realize Ijiro had already gone, since he was walking onto the field with a huge grin. The king of manliness! Please, stop giving people royal titles. The manliest man, Kirishima Ejiro, a rock-solid friend, or so I've heard, versus the human bomb, Bakugo Kautsky. Time to answer the age-old question of the unstoppable force versus the immovable object. Midnight called for the start, and Ejiro crossed his arms in front of his face as Bakugo lunged, palms popping. Izuku already knew how this would go. Ijiro would last a long time, since they had been practicing, but he wouldn't last long enough for Bakugo to overexert himself, and even if he did, Bakugo embodied plus ultra to the fullest, if it meant winning. 5 minutes later, a powerful explosion sent Ijiro out of the ring, passed out. The next battle was between 2 blondes, Denki and Monoma. The Class 1B kid that Izuku had embarrassed himself in front of the other day, who apparently talked about him to at least Setsuna. Honestly, Izuku wasn't sure how this one would go. Sure, Denki was a human taser and discouraged getting touched for a copy, But Monoma had no doubt come prepared with some of his classmates' quirks, so he'd have to see what the boy had before he could make an actual decision. Class B's own copy machine versus the generator of Class A. Another battle of the hero classes. How will this turn out? Fight! Denki lunged forward. Body lit up yellow as a lightning arched across his skin, and Monoma laughed and yelled something at him before Denki slammed into an invisible wall. Denki recoiled a little, reeling from the impact, when Monoma punched forward. A second air displacement, stronger than the first, followed the punch after a split-second delay, and Denki found himself stumbling backwards again. Monoma slammed his hands to the ground, causing the concrete to ripple, but Denki found his feet and jumped forward, extending a hand that crackled. Monoma's eyes widened as he tried to slide back, but Denki connected and he jolted before he managed to get away. His hair was rising a little from his head, filled with static, but he righted himself and grinned. Izuku could actually hear the yell this time. You fool! Now I have a copy of your quirk. Let's see how it feels when it's turned against you. Izuku sucked in a breath as Monoma released all the energy at once, Denki backing up to avoid the brunt of it. And when it cleared, Monoma was out, thumbs up and expression empty. Monoma is unable to continue. Kaminari moves on. The crowd cheered, and Izuku watched Denki walk over with a wince before sending a small shock through Monoma, causing the other boy to start and come back to awareness. His eyes narrowed, and he immediately started to ask questions, or so Izuku assumed, since they walked off the field together, with Denki grinning wryly. It was the expression he always had when Izuku was asking anyone a bunch of questions. Our final match of round 1, the Package Master, Sero Hanta of the Hero Course, versus our last non-hero competitor, the surprise 4th place in the cavalry battle, Shinzo Hitoshi. Shinzo said something to Sero right before midnight called for the start, and the next thing Izuku knew, Sero was walking out of bounds. That was awesome! Izuku couldn't wait to figure out what the hell had just happened, because it already looked really cool. He would really have to track the purple-haired boy down later, because that seemed really useful, whatever it was. Was it mind control? Body control? Suggestion? Or maybe it was something like Midnight's quirk? Now that was fast! But now we're in round 2 of round 3, match 1. Goodness, wrap your heads around all those numbers. First up, we have the frosty Todoroki versus speedy Ida. Will Ida be fast enough to dodge the winter chill? Let's find out. Midnight called for the start, and it was over in an instant. A huge glacier covering half the arena and casting a shadow over the viewing booths. It seems like Todoroki didn't want to risk it and completely froze his opponent before he could move. Todoroki moves on after what might be the shortest match in history. The crowd called out to Ida, telling him not to mind, and Izuku's heart went out to the boy. First he was used as an advertisement for May, then he was frozen solid without a real chance to even try. It didn't seem like Todoroki to use such overwhelming power, and this time he barely melted Ida before walking off, alone. I hope our second round fighters are making their way down, but we will need a few minutes to clean the ice from the arena, so hang tight. Oh, right, he should probably go. He passed Todoroki in the hallway. Hey, congrats on your... But the boy brushed past him, eyes shimmering with anger, but Izuku knew it wasn't directed at him. It wasn't directed at Ida either, but it still made Izuku flinch at its intensity. Todoroki didn't even seem to notice him. He slipped out into the arena as Mike called to introduce the next match, taking a few deep breaths and running back over his plan. Sure, it was simple, but that also meant it was adaptable, in case things went wrong. In one corner, our green legend, Midoriya, versus the Raven of the Night, Tokoyami. Izuku powered up one for all to the creaking 6%, and as soon as Midnight started the match, he lunged forward, ducking and weaving around Dark Shadow before the bird-like creature could react, and grabbed Tokoyami around the waist, heaving him backwards. Shadow claws dug into the ground, stopping the boy just before the boundary line. The same trick will not work again, creature of light. Izuku grinned. I don't know. I think I'm faster than you and Dark Shadow. The bird in question cackled. Me and Fumi can beat you. In response, they both lunged again. But when Izuku ducked under Dark Shadow, Tokoyami was no longer where he had been standing. The hairs on the back of his neck prickled, and he threw himself to the ground, feeling Dark Shadow fly over him by the wind. He flung himself to his feet and dialed up one for all to 7%. He tackled Tokoyami before he could move again and threw him again, this time aiming a bit more up, and he desperately tried to stop himself again, but it was too late. Tokoyami is out of bounds. Midoriya wins. Tokoyami sighed and bowed. It was a good fight. Dark Shadow poked his head out. You were cool. Fumi wants to be your friend. Dark Shadow, cease this instant. Izuku giggled. I'd like to be friends with you two, too. Thanks for the good match. He waved as they walked away and winced. Going up to 7% had been what let him win, but it made him sore all around. He stepped off the arena, heading back through the tunnels where he would go back to the waiting booth. A wave of heat washed over him and he sighed. It felt nice. Wait a minute. His head shot up and he came face to face with the scowling fire. No, wait. It was Endeavor. So you will be fighting my Shoto next. Yes? I guess so? He nodded with a sneer. Make sure you give him a good fight. His past two opponents have been weak, but you seem strong enough to actually give him a challenge. You'll be a good stepping stone on his path to defeating All Might. Izuku's eye flashed as he turned away. Okay, this man was a grade A dick. Not only did he commit a felony, apparently, and was a child abuser who may or may not also be technically guilty of murder, but now he was actively belittling his classmates, who had worked really hard and were 10 times the person he would ever be. Excuse me, Endeavor? He turned back with the raised eyebrow and a glare. I'm not All Might. Clearly, and Shoto isn't you. Endeavor turned to face him more fully with a scowl. What are you getting at, boy? Izuku pursed his lips. When he becomes a great hero, it will have nothing to do with you. He felt the heat flare, but he was already walking away to the stands, ducking into the safety of the public corridors and soon finding himself back in the 1A booth. Yo, dude, nice job! You're going to the semifinals! Izuku ignored Ejiro and glanced up at the half-and-half boy who was looking impassively at the field, eyes still having that flare of anger in them. Todoroki. The boy looked at him impassive. Your dad's a dick. He blinked, even as the rest of their classmates erupted into confusion, and Izuku saw the corner of his lip twist up before his expression flattened again. He is. The class had never been more confused, but Izuku just nodded and plopped down to watch Bakugo finish exploding Momo. Cementos reset the stage, and the mic started introducing the next round. Our dark horse Gened, Shinzo Hitoshi, versus the human taser Kaminari Denki. Who will win? Hopefully this won't be as short as Shinzo's last match. Shinzo smirked and said something that had Denki sputtering and blushing furiously, electricity flicking off of him. He said something back and stilled, but not before Shinzo had his own light dusting of pink on his ears and cheeks. He covered his eyes with his hands and muttered something that had Denki turning and walking out of the ring. Damn! Another quick one. Shinzo moves on to the semifinals, which will start after a 15-minute break with Todoroki versus Midoriya. Stay tuned, folks! Todoroki offered him a nod as he stood up to go prepare, and Izuku smiled. He was decidedly not nervous. Definitely not. These are the endnotes. For those curious, the conversation between those two went something like this. Shin: So, is my voice hot? Denki: Oh my god, you didn't forget. Shin: No, I didn't. Now go walk out of bounds. Jesus Christ, why are all heroic students like this? Do I even want to join their class now? Good God. I'd like to think the fights were realistic, but I gotta say, this is not my genre. I'm shit at writing fights. See you next time for the second of the gay disasters. Also, I have a new fic of spirits and demons. Go check it out. And that is the end. Hope you liked the fic, and if you did, share some love to the author. This wouldn't be here without them. Anyways, make sure to stay tuned on the Podficcer's Baton, and stay tuned for the next chapter, which will be read by Vix Podfics. Anyway, good night. If I don't see you again, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Bye!